So my name is Morag Mackay, and the name of the webinar today is Keeping Kids and Families Safe Throughout the Holidays. And it is sponsored by the Children's Safety Network. But before we get started with the actual content of the webinar, Kate Sinclair has a few technical announcements just to help us out throughout the webinar. Kate.
Hello, everyone. So right now, if you can hear me, the audio is being broadcast through your computer speakers. If you're experiencing audio issues, dial 866-835-7973 and mute your computer speakers. You are muted throughout the webinar, so if you have any questions, there's a Q&A pod on the bottom left of your screen to ask questions of our presenters team at any time. The slides and other resources for this webinar are in the file share pod at the top, and this session is being recorded and will be put on the CSN website after the webinar. Back to you, Morag.
Great, thanks, Kate. So this project is supported by the Health Resources and Services Administration, or HRSA, of the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services under the Child and Adolescent Injury and Violence Prevention Resource Centers Cooperative Agreement. The information or content and conclusions today are those of the author and should not be construed as official position or policy of, nor should any endorsements be inferred to HRSA, HHS, or the U.S. government. So, as I've already said, my name's Morag Mackay. I'm Director of Research at Safe Kids Worldwide, but I am also a member of the Children's Safety Now Alliance. And as we said, the topic today is keeping kids and families safe throughout the holidays. And we are really lucky to have speaking with us today Nychelle Fleming. But just before I introduce her, I wanted to talk a little bit about the Children's Product Recall newsletter. So that is one of the downloadable documents in the file share. And that is a newsletter that Safe Kids puts out on a monthly basis that highlights any recalled products, and they also have other news related to children's safety within that newsletter. And if you look at that document, at the very end of it, there are links where you can go and sign up to receive that newsletter, in addition to a few other resources that CPSC also has in terms of keeping you notified about important issues when products are recalled. So, Nychelle has worked for the U.S. Consumer Product Safety Commission for the past 28 years. Not that she looks like that is possible with that beautiful picture. But she is the Public Affairs Specialist in the Office of Communication, and she specializes in children's product safety and serves as the team lead for the Pool Safely Drowning Prevention Education Campaign. She is also a founding member of CPSC's Community Outreach Resource Team, who engage with grassroots organizations nationwide. She writes press releases, safety alerts and warnings, writes and produces safety videos, and organizes several annual safety events for the Commission, including the annual Holiday Toy Safety Event and the Fireworks Safety Event. She is a lead spokesperson for the Commission and appears regularly on national and local media to help promote the CPSC safety messages and announce major recall announcements. She's quoted regularly and serves as a safety expert and provides advice to newspapers, parenting magazines, newsletters, online, and various social media platforms. So she is very well prepared and the expert here to help us in terms of sharing information on today's topic. But not only that, but she is the proud parent of 3 children, although they are all getting a little bit older now. And I am going to turn over to her now and say, welcome, Nychelle. We're really looking forward to hearing what you have to share with us today.
Thanks, Morag. Thanks for that introduction. I appreciate it. And I want to say, yeah, thanks for that gracious comment about the photo. It is a few years old now. I'm extremely happy to be here, and although I appreciate all the great work that I feel like I've done here at the Commission, truly I think being a parent is what has prepared me most for on-hands experience with toy safety and a variety of children's product safety topics that I've worked on over the years. So yeah, my kids keep me humble and keep me in line with these types of materials. So I just wanted to give our Consumer Product Safety Commission disclaimer, and the views expressed in this presentation are those of the staff and do not necessarily represent the view of the Commission. Let's see. So the Consumer Product Safety Commission is a federal regulatory agency or independent created in 1972. We're responsible for consumer product safety. And I just wanted to clarify when I talk about consumer product safety, it's easier to talk about what we don't do, to give you the exclusions because we have such a large job. We have about 15,000 categories of consumer products we're responsible for. And of those categories, what we don't do is food and drugs. So that would be FDA's jurisdiction. Also, we don't do anything related to the automobile. With the exception, we do share jurisdiction with the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration. We share car seat safety. If it's a car seat that is also a dual carrier, handheld carrier where you can carry your baby, then it would be a baby product that the Consumer Product Safety Commission would have jurisdiction. We would share jurisdiction if it was also used as a car seat in the automobile. They have jurisdiction over car seats. So we're made up of a 5 commission. Presently, we just recently, our previous chairman just resigned last month, acting chairman, Anne Marie Burkle. So this picture now includes the remaining 4 commissioners, left to right, Commissioner Feldman, Commissioner Biacco, and then acting chairman now, Robert Adler is our acting chairman presently, while we're missing 1 commissioner, and then Commissioner Elliott Kay on the right side of that picture. So we're presently waiting for the president to appoint either another commissioner to make us complete and or name a new chairman of the agency. So again, the Consumer Product Safety Commission has a simple but critical mission, keeping children and families safe from dangerous consumer products. Again, big job, big responsibility, and we are considered a smaller federal agency with a little less than 500 employees nationwide total. Again, preventing injuries and deaths, conducting recalls and safety standards, which is probably what we're most well known for, hopefully. You all have heard of consumer product recalls. And then my office in particular, in the Office of Communications, has a big responsibility to educate consumers on all the great work of the Commission and on the safe use of consumer products. So how do we do this? Preventing injuries and deaths by, again, conducting recalls of dangerous products, developing information and education programs, and I want to mention that I do also run the Pool Safely Drowning Prevention Campaign, which is the largest information and education campaign out of the Commission. It was born out of the Virginia Graham Baker Pool and Spa Safety Act. So I always have drowning prevention at hand when I'm talking to consumers, and in this case we're talking about children, and unfortunately drownings is still the leading cause of death for children under the age of 5. So I just want to mention that. We also collaborate with industry and advocacy groups, and that's why I'm happy to be working with the Children's Safety Network today and also Morag, Safe Kids. We've done lots of work together with them. We also conduct inspections at the ports, and I think it's important to note with the inspections at the ports, we work with U.S. Customs and Border Patrol. The issue there is, millions, of course, of products are coming into the country. We work directly with Customs and actually educate and train them to help to be our eyes and ears right there at the ports and stop shipments before they can ever reach toy shelves. In this case, we're talking about toys, reach the shelves, so that we're able to make those stops right there at the ports. And then the Commission also has the ability to seek civil and criminal penalties, including monetary, and we can penalize companies up to $100,000 per violation, up to $75 million penalties. Let's see. So today's overview of what I'll be talking about, I'm specifically talking about toy safety today and decorating safety. On the toy safety side, I'll highlight the concerns and what the Commission's really looking at when we look at toy safety, specifically small parts and age labeling, lead requirements, what are some of the violations, tracking labels and certification requirements on the manufacturer side. Also toy data. I'll give you the latest recalls for the Commission. And there's some good news there with a continued decline in toy recalls, and the latest injury and death data. Finalizing that with the safety tips on how all of you can keep yourselves and your family safe. And then it's holiday time, of course, decorating safety. We'll go over this time of year and some of the fire and injury data, which is our latest data we just released on holiday decorating safety, and then provide, again, the safety tips for that as well. So again, here are the kind of the highlights of what the Commission is looking at when we talk about toys. Small parts violations, warning labels that are required on a product. We'd be looking out for that. Again, lead content, lead and paint, and we'll go over the specifics of what's allowable in products in later slides. The arts material is, for short, is LAMA, and that is the Labeling of Hazardous Art Materials Act. We talked about that. Phthalates violation, and for those who may not be familiar with a phthalate, it is a plastic that's used in plastics to make it more pliable. So phthalates violations, certification violations, tracking label, again, requirements of violations. And then ASTM F963 was formerly a voluntary standard, which now under the Consumer Product Safety Improvement Act is now the mandatory toy safety requirement. And that's the standard consumer safety specifications for toy safety. It's a mouthful. So when we talk about small parts requirements, specifically toys for children under 3 years of age, we're particularly concerned with this age group because we know behaviorally young children are going to mouth objects and put products in their mouth. So we're especially concerned about small parts. So toys and other articles for children under 3 years of age must not contain any small parts before and after our use and abuse testing, which is specific for manufacturers. And then the small part means that it presents a choking, aspiration, or ingestion hazard. And we'll give you some examples of that later slides. Also, small parts are articles that fit into our small parts cylinder, and I am going to show you one of those. And here it is. So our small parts testing cylinder. So it shows a cylinder that is about 1.25 inches in diameter. And again, this is representative of approximately a 3-year-old's throat. But in addition to just the diameter is also the fact that you see that slope. So if a product were to completely fit into that cylinder with the slope, like you can kind of see that with the first yellow small part picture there, then it would violate the small parts standard. But as you can see on the right slide, the purple slide, a product, if it breaks into small pieces that also fit into the cylinder, it could also be a violation of CPSC small parts. So requirements for labeling for children 3 years of age and above. So these are slightly older kids. And I always say no one knows your kid better than you. And I know my kids who are obviously all big now, but when they were young, 3 was not a magic number. And at 4, if they were still mouthing products, I still took the advice, to watch out for small parts if they're still putting things in their mouth. But toys and games for children 3 years of age and above can have small parts, but a cautionary statement is required to warn purchasers. So we always say use that label on the product that's required as a guide when you're shopping. And again, maybe some of you may have young people in your families and off to purchasing toys. So we want you to keep that in mind, to use that age labeling that's required as a guide. And here are some examples of what those labels would look like. There is a special label for small parts, and again, not for children under 3. is the first one. The second one is specific to small balls. There is a special warning just for small balls. You'll see the third one down below is for marbles. And again, these are the types of products that we've unfortunately seen problems and actually had deaths associated with small balls and marbles. And then we have the children under 8 years can choke or suffocate on uninflated or broken balloon pieces. This is really important because it's what we call a hidden danger. Most people don't associate a balloon with a problem. You usually associate it with a festive occasion, like a party. So I am that person who when I hear a balloon burst, I get down on the floor immediately because usually everybody's preoccupied with whatever the party may be, and get all those small broken pieces up off the floor. Again, tragically, we've seen repeated deaths over the years of small balls and balloon pieces. They can actually cut off the airway of a young child because of that elasticity nature of the balloon material itself. So it can be, again, a hidden danger. And then we did, again, the small balls here and then marbles. So now we're going to get into lead requirements. And again, this the good news for parents out there and grandparents and shopping. We've seen some success stories on toy safety in particular, with lead recalls also continuing to see a decline, and we'll go into that in another slide. But the lead content that is allowable or cannot exceed is 100 parts per million in children's products, and then lead in paint cannot exceed 90 parts per million for surface coating on children's products. So, and then there are certain materials that would not contain lead and therefore do not require the lead content testing. Some of those materials are paper, most textiles, so your fabrics, and natural fibers, plant and animal-derived materials, and certain precious metals. So, and there's our pointing to our CFR, which is our Code of Federal Regulations. The complete list can be found there. Again, typical ASTM F963 violations. Again, these are mandatory requirements for toys or cords, straps, elastic toys, and again, under 18-month toys that are intended for children under 18 months of age should be more than 12 inches long with beads or attachments at the end of the cords. So that could be a violation. Projectile toys that have sharp points or shoot improvised projectiles, that could be a violation as well. Battery-operated toys, so battery compartment is not secured. So what we require, you'll notice here with the yellow circle, not only does it have the battery compartment, but there has to be a secondary way in which you to get to that battery compartment so that the child can't access the battery. In this case, it looks like you're going to need a small screwdriver to access that battery compartment of the toy. So if something were in violation of that, that could be a reason for a recall. And then magnets, again, another product that I'll talk a lot about a little bit later, again, being a hidden danger of if you're going to choose a magnet, you want to avoid, again, for children under the age of 8, we want to avoid it altogether. So it's really adult magnets with the high-powered magnets can reconnect if swallowed and can cause serious intestinal injuries. So we'll talk about that a little later too. Okay, tracking label requirements. So this is a product that's, the tracking label is permanently affixed to the children's product and its packaging. It's required. And these are the kinds of things that we would work with our field offices as well as our, again, working with U.S. Customs who can help alert the Commission sometimes to take a second look at a product. And it requires these items to be on it, a manufacturer, private labeler, the city and country, date of production, and other pertinent information required there. The certification requirements for children's product. Again, the good news for children's products under the law, the Consumer Product Safety Improvement Act, children's products are actually required to have third-party mandatory testing. So that is a good thing. They're required before they can be sold, and then they have to provide that proof to the commission. Here is a list of our accepted laboratories that can do that testing. If you were a manufacturer person with your own company for toys that you want to sell in the United States, and that would be manufacturer, importer, retailers as well, all be required. So that's the certification requirement for children's products, and it requires what's called a CPC, a Children's Product Certificate, and it must accompany the product when it enters the U.S. borders. So here was the graphic that I was talking about, some of the good news, kind of from a historical perspective on toy safety. So Safer Toys, you'll see here in our early 2008, we had about 172 toy recalls in that 1 year alone. And it's hard to see, but on the top of that tallest pillar of, these are supposed to be shipping containers, not the ports, is the number 19. We had, that same year, we have a 19 lead-related recalls. So you can see the good news over the years from 2008 down to 2009 and continue on to our most recent report we just put out 2 weeks ago. We have in 2019, our most recent data shows 12 toy recalls in this past fiscal year. So it's good news from the sense that the recalls are coming down. There's still work to be done, obviously, and we still want consumers. For those, I know at the beginning of the slides, we were talking about making sure you're aware of recalls, checking for recalls. This just shows that you still have to be do your due diligence and check for recalls. And at the top of that, 2019, we've had one lead recall in 2019. So again, we're showing progress, but there should be zero, lead in any toy given to a child. So that's that graphic. So CPSC, we do an annual toy injury and death report. And this is our most recent. We're always 1 year behind, 1 calendar year behind the way our data is reported. So CPSC has received reports of 17 toy-related deaths that occurred in 2018 to children younger than 15 years of age. Non-motorized scooters were associated with 3 of the 17 reported fatalities, and all 3 deaths were due to motor vehicle involvement. So it's not always the toy itself that has caused the problem. So one of the things we in particular say for what we call riding toys, non-motorized scooters being one of them. So whether you have a non-motorized scooter, a bicycle, a tricycle, a little scoot toy that maybe a 1-year-old can use, supervision is key. Number one, it gives the child access and mobility to move about freely and sometimes get themselves into trouble. In this case, we had incidents that were associated with motor vehicle involvement, so that's important. But also with riding toys, we'll want to also mention making sure no gift is complete. If you choose any of those popular items like a bicycle, a non-motorized scooter, that you get the safety gear to go with it. So for bicycles in particular, you're obviously going to need that helmet. For non-motorized scooters, you want that helmet again. You could add the elbow pads and the knee pads. If you're going to choose a skateboard, for instance, you would want the wrist guards, the elbow pads, the knee pads, and the helmet. So again, make sure if you're choosing any of these popular items this time of year, such as riding toys, that you're including that safety gear with it. Also, rubber balls and balloons were involved in 3 of the fatalities in our latest data. Then we have hospital emergency department treated injuries. The Consumer Product Safety Commission has a database called NICE. It actually is spelled NEISS. It stands for National Electronic Injury Surveillance System, and that's where this data comes from, our hospital. We are connected to about 100 hospitals nationwide, and that's where we get our national estimates. So in particular for toys, we had 226,100 toy-related injuries. So these are people who actually went to the emergency room. Males accounted for 56% of those injuries. And of the 226,000, an estimated 73% happened to children younger than 15, 70% to children 12 years of age and younger, and 37% happen to children younger than 5 years of age. So again, we're looking at young children as being the audience that we want to keep safe and make sure parents are aware how they can go about keeping children safe. 39% of the estimated emergency department treated injuries were classified as lacerations, contusions, or abrasions, so basically cuts and bruises. 46% of the estimated injuries were to the head and face, the most common area affected by the body. So this report can be found on cpsc.gov. We actually put this document out every year and are always looking again for improvement. We don't want to see anyone hurt, especially during the holiday time, but all year long. It's our job to keep consumers safe throughout the year as well. So how do you stay safe? What are some helpful toy safety tips that everyone can use? I'm going to go over again, checking the product warning label and age recommendations, and most importantly, using them as your guide to shop. That's one of the most common concerns I hear from parents too. Where do I begin? My child wants this product. My child wants that product. So again, start with the age labeling, use it as your guide, and make age-appropriate choices. And realize that these safety labels are here for safety reasons, not just comprehension. So I know I've heard this story before, even from my parents, grandparents, that my 3-year-old is smarter than the average 3-year-old. So I'll go ahead and get this product, obviously intended for a 5-year-old. Yeah, we don't want you to do that because again, it is based on human factor science and data about where kids are, and we want to take those precautions and remember that again, you don't want to present that hazard to the child. Avoiding toys, we talked a lot about small parts because unfortunately it has been the leading cause of toy-related deaths the last few years, along with riding toys. So we always want to emphasize that danger. Looking for the warning statement again on balloons. Again, we talked about that being a hidden danger that people just don't associate it with being a problem. So it's the deflated balloon itself. So even if you had a bag of deflated balloons laying around, you would not want to have that laying around near a young child. And then again, if the balloon were to break into pieces, that can be a problem. And then when purchasing toys and games online, which is becoming more popular, I think more of us are going online to shop, you want to look for that same warning statement that I talked about required on product packaging. It's also required to be on the firm's advertising page, so you might have to take a couple extra clicks depending on how it's marketed on the internet or online. But take that extra minute. It's worth it for the safety of your child to make sure that you're taking that extra second and again, choosing age-appropriate toys to keep them safe. So continuing with our safe toy tips, ensure that a stuffed toy, again, is age appropriate. And this is a little bit outside of just regular toy safety, but for instance, on the safe sleep side, which is another hat that I wear at the commission, not placing a stuffed toy in a crib, for instance, which we say bare is best. You should have nothing in the crib but a fitted sheet, but not placing something that could become a suffocation hazard to the child. That was one of our deaths in the report listed, the 2018 report that we just released. We did have a child who did suffocate with a stuffed animal, with their nose and mouth found against the stuffed animal. But also we talked about embellishments, secured eyes and noses. I always say it's always a good idea this time of year to take a look at your toy box and see what's in there from last year and the year before that. Make sure the product's not in disrepair. Make sure, again, the eyes and noses are still secured on the products, or the products have not been broken into pieces that could cause a problem. So clean out kind of your existing, look around the house, check for recalls, of course. Get rid of those before you go out shopping for a new batch of toys this holiday season. We did, again, talk about being careful with magnets and magnet sets. Again, high-powered, loose magnets and magnet sets are a safety risk to children if ingested. So what happens, a child swallows a loose magnet, and if they were to swallow 2 or more, they can actually, because of the high-powered nature of the magnet, can reconnect in the intestines and cause serious intestinal injuries. And again, a lot of times, yeah, a consumer just wouldn't know that even a part or a piece is missing because a lot of them come in with large quantities, of magnets, so you wouldn't even know one or two are missing or that your child has swallowed it. So again, keeping them away from children altogether, young children altogether. And we talked a lot about matching your child's interests and abilities as well as your family's play environment on exactly what toys you're bringing into the house, again, using those age labels as your guide, and getting your safety gear, and again, knowing your seller online. Purchase toys from stores and online retailers you know and trust. It's really important. So secondhand shopping or online shopping, which I think we've talked about this now a couple times, but ensuring that you're not buying or selling recalled products. It is easy to kind of take a previous product and even just hand it down to another family member who may have a younger child, but you want to make sure you're not giving a hazard to another child. So you want to check for recalls. That's very important. And you can research products before you sell or look to give them away at cpsc.gov. And then CPSC does have an internet surveillance team, and we're working to stop online sales of recalled products. And we also work with a lot of the larger warehouses where you can sell products to use them to help the commission identify if a recalled product is being sold. And we do want to hear about it. We do want to hear from you. If you see a product that's recalled, we will follow up on that and work with that, either the site that's hosting it to pull it down and or the individual consumer. If it were individual consumer, we do our best to do that as well. And again, knowing who your seller is and purchasing from stores and online, taking that same advice on the online retailers again. So after opening the gifts, actually plastic wrappings on toys can actually become dangerous playthings, and we always tease about this too. People who've had young children, sometimes the child likes to play with the box more than the toy itself, but a lot of times they come with a plastic wrapping or plastic pieces that may hold it in place. Those can be choking hazards, so again, discarding all your wrappings immediately, again, during the holiday season. It gets chaotic and everyone's running around, so you take that extra minute and go ahead and get rid of anything that could cause a problem. And I do have a large age gap between my 3 kids, so I always use my older child to help me as a parent, keep products that may have been appropriate for her away from her younger siblings. And that's something parents need to keep in mind if you have a kind of an age variation of children that you're shopping for who may be in the same home. Something that may be appropriate for that 8-year-old may not be appropriate for that 2-year-old. So working as a family to help keep everyone safe is important. And then pay attention to the manufacturer's instructions and warnings, especially on battery chargers. They can overheat, and again, looking for recalled products for that reason is another important thing to check. So now we're going to move into holiday decorating. Again, it's that time of year. People are pulling out their decorations, I should say, for the house, and we'll talk about some of our latest data there. So CPSC just 2 weeks ago had our Home Safe Home Holiday Safety Press Conference. I don't know if anyone was able to see some of the footage, but we actually did a live tree burn of a dried out Christmas tree. What can happen with a dried out Christmas tree. We also did a turkey fryer. We all just got it over Thanksgiving. So we talked about turkey fryer safety, some of the hazards there, and then toy safety. So it's the first time that the Commission's actually combined all 3 topics. We normally just do toys by itself and decorating and cooking by themselves, but this year we did all 3. So this is our Neighborhood Safety Network poster that actually highlighted all the safety tips associated with those 3 topics and what you can do to be safe. And I think here, yes, so you should see at the top of your page one more poll question like you answered at the beginning. Yes, and I'll just give a minute for everyone to read that. And have you reshared CPSC safety messages with your network, family, and friends? Yeses, some pretty positives with the yeses, some no's. So this particular poster at the bottom, you'll see the NSN label, which stands for Neighborhood Safety Network. We put these out about once a month on various campaigns and topics. So we encourage you to sign up, number one, for the Neighborhood Safety Network, and you can do that at cpsc.gov. But it's a simple and easy way to share with friends and family. And if in your line of work, you need something that you can print out and post. That's the idea behind Neighborhood Safety Network, is to have something visual. We try to use less text, more visuals to get our safety messages across for the Neighborhood Safety Network with that audience in mind. So this is a great place to do that. So it's good to see that between around 66-67% of you have shared safety messages with family and friends. I encourage you to sign up for Neighborhood Safety Network and continue doing so. And again, that could be seasonal items. So obviously this time of year we're working on holiday safety, but throughout the year we'll have some spring safety tips. We'll have winter safety tips coming out in the January season. Drowning prevention usually is one of our Neighborhood Safety Network posters, and then, of course, firework safety around the 4th of July as well. We'll continue on. So on the decorating side for deaths and injury data, again, our latest numbers, so 2017 is the latest number for, again, these are hospital emergency room treated injuries. There are about 200 decorating-related injuries each day during the holiday season. So again, we don't want to see anyone end up in the hospital emergency room, so taking extra precautions this time of year is super important. In 2018, there were 5 deaths associated with holiday decorating. 4 people died as a result of Christmas tree-related house fires, and 1 elderly person died after falling off a ladder while removing lights. It's super important if you're going to be hanging lights on the outside of your home with a ladder that you have a second person there to hold the ladder, number one, and just make sure you're not going up on that final rung of the ladder. That you're not going all the way up at the top, but yeah, that can be dangerous, as you see here. And then in 2017, about 18,100 people were treated in emergency rooms due to holiday decorating related injuries. So that's just in the few months surrounding the holiday season. The majority of those incidents involved falls, and most injuries resulted in, again, cuts and lacerations and strains and sprains. The fire data for Christmas tree and candles. Again, candles are pretty popular. From 2014 to 2016, there were about 1,200 fires involving Christmas trees and candles each of those years. Candle-related, about 1,100 fires annually, resulting in 10 deaths, 140 emergency room treated injuries, and about $39 million in property damage each year. So obviously the tip with candles is never leave them unattended. We also say there's another option these days, and they are looking more and more like real candles. The battery-operated style is a good idea if you're going to make that choice. You can always use the battery-operated style candle. And then with Christmas tree fires, again, about 100 annually, resulting in 10 emergency room treated injuries and about $10 million in property damage each year. So good news, there are no reportable Christmas tree fire deaths. So again, top 3 tips here. Make sure a live Christmas tree has plenty of water. You want to keep it fresh, and what you're taking a check of the needles on the tree. Make sure none are falling off if you're going to buy that fresh tree. If you're going to buy the other trees, the what word am I looking for? The fake trees. You want to look for a flame-resistant label on that product as well. And then for candles, you want to keep lit candles, again, away from flammable items. And again, never leaving unattended. And then using caution when you use a ladder to hang decorations. As you saw earlier, falls were the leading cause of hospital emergency room treated decorating-related injuries. And here's some additional decorating safety tips. We got Christmas trees. And yeah, we talked about keeping trees away from a heat source like fireplaces and vents and radiators. That will help it dry out even faster. So it's important to keep it watered, but also that's another great tip. We talked about not leaving candles unattended, but also keeping them away from kids and pets is another good tip, who can knock them over. And then ladder safety. If you're using a ladder to string the lights, always be sure to place your ladder on a firm, level ground. And again, having a second person, having a helper there to hold the bottom of the ladder. Ornaments. Ornaments with small parts, you want to keep them out of reach of small children who can choke on them. I have noticed in stores there's the option of the more plastic type of ornament rather than a glass ornament or something like that that can obviously break into small parts or pieces. And then lights. For your Christmas lights, you want to use lights that were tested by a nationally recognized testing laboratory, and that would be directly on the product box. So you want to throw out, and then you want to inspect if you've stored some lights in your basement, for the season. Before the season, then you want to throw out sets with broken or cracked sockets. You want to check for frayed insulation or bare wires or loose connections. And if you find those, you want to go ahead and get rid of that set and go ahead and get yourself a new set. Plug outdoor lights and decorative outfits into a ground fault circuit interrupter that protects that's a protective receptacle, or a portable, what we call a GFCI, which stands for ground fault circuit interrupter. So kind of getting back to how to stay informed and be an empowered consumer. So here's, again, that poll I think you took at the beginning, talking about have you reported to the commission. This is really important. It's important to know that the commission receives data from a lot of different sources, consumers being one of them. saferproducts.gov, our website where you can report and search for previously recalled products. That's where you would report something directly to us if you have a product that you've had a problem with. And so we're calling for everyone, to take advantage of that, and we do want to hear from you. So saferproducts.gov is one way you can report directly online. You can also give us permission to make it public, so it's searchable database. So if you have an incident, even if it hasn't been a recalled product, you can still look up information on saferproducts.gov of something that someone may have placed on our database concern that's been. And also manufacturers can connect with CPSC on this database as well. And again, finally, connecting with us, here's our social media links. I encourage you to definitely take advantage of those. On safety is our blog, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter are some choices. And I think that wraps it up for me. So look forward to answering any questions. And again, thank you for your time. Appreciate it. Again, like I said, I'm passionate about safety and want to keep you and your family safe this holiday season. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Nikki. That was a lot of great information, and we have a lot of questions. If you haven't already asked your question, please remember you are able to enter your questions in the Q&A pod to the left of your screen. But I have had a few questions about where you can register for the monthly recall report, and they've just posted that in that spot, so you can just click on that link and it will allow you to register directly. But Nikki, we have a couple of questions going back to the slides where you were sharing some data about recalled products. And the first one is around that really neat slide where you were talking about the number of recalled products, and the white boxes at the top of those stacks were lead-related ones. And we have a question asking, are there particular countries where those toys with lead in them are coming from?
No, not in particular, no. And this is actually some good news that actually came out of some of the early work that was done back in 2008 because we were seeing such high numbers of kind of imported products and toys being recalled, and also toys with lead. We took safety to the source, and the Commission actually has staff in China and other countries where we actually have an international affairs office who works to educate other parts of the world about safety requirements that are required to sell a toy in the United States. So the good news is we're working directly with other countries, and it's important for consumers to know, regardless of the place of origin, it still has to meet U.S. safety standards, and we do have some of the toughest and strongest toy safety standards in the world. So again, I wouldn't highlight one specific country, but again, products are made all over the world. We are becoming more global, but again, our toy safety requirements are regardless of the country of origin, and the Commission and any importer or manufacturer, again, and then we work with retailers too, to make sure recalled products are not ending up for sale here in the United States.
Fantastic. So do you attribute that drop, that really major drop you saw between 2008 and 2009, to that outreach to other countries, or are there other reasons?
I think it's a combination, yeah. So again, we've talked a little bit about the Consumer Product Safety Improvement Act, again, that requires third-party testing of products too, to make sure, again, that they meet the standard before. So that's another helpful point. But yes, that outreach, of course, help and directly reaching out and making sure everyone is educated on exactly what they need to do. And again, our work, which this slide actually represents, is our work directly with U.S. Customs and Border Protection, being able to kind of, even if products kind of make it to our shores and make it to the ports, we're able to stop it there. We usually have stopped millions of units that just never make it to toy shelves as well.
So we have another related question to that, just a question sort of asking about, a lot of people shopping in dollar stores, and that there is sort of this sense out there that there may be more lead in the toys that you see in dollar stores than there are in other stores. Do you have any information on that?
Yeah, the thing about a recalled toy, you can't look at it and know it's recalled. So it's super important to sign up to get direct recall notification. I know your organization, Morag, has Safe Kids, has their information, cpsc.gov. You can sign up for our recalls directly. And I do want to say, because sometimes people are intimidated by the sheer quantity of recalls that our agency puts out. The good news for toys, again, is that we've only put out 12 toy recalls this year. But on average, the Commission puts out between 300 and 400 recalls per year. So what you can do on our website on cpsc.gov is specify the type of recall you want to receive. So if you're a parent, for instance, and you only want to receive children's products, you can click on children's products. If you're interested in, or you do a lot of, work outside of the home, maybe your lawnmower and that kind of, you can choose those types of products. So there are categories in which you can sign up to receive recalls. So we don't want you to be overwhelmed with receiving the information from the Commission. But again, it's your best defense is to get that direct notification in your inbox, whether it's from you, Safe Kids, or from CPSC directly. That's your best defense as a consumer.
Great, thanks. A couple more questions around the data, though. For the fires that occur on Christmas trees, are those always real Christmas trees, or is it sometimes artificial trees as well? Do you have a sense of the breakdown between the two?
I don't have the breakdown, but I do know, in our demonstration that we did this year again, and you'll see some of that information, I think, is still highlighted on cpsc.gov, and some of our footage, our videos and everything, that was focusing on dried out Christmas trees, so we know that can be a problem. But again, when you're shopping for the fake trees, you want to look for that non-flame non-flammable label that's required on there as well, so making your choices that way too. So, and again, looking at the manufacturer's instructions about proper use and placement. We talked a little bit about the placement of the product because anything, obviously can become flammable if it's placed up against a fireplace or near a candle, that kind of thing. So you want to be careful about your placement of your tree as well.
Great. And related to flammability, are there flammability requirements for stuffed toys?
I actually will have to confirm that. I believe I think there are under the toy safety, the ASTM requirements, but I know I didn't highlight that. So yeah, actually, if you don't mind giving me that question offline, I would definitely follow up with our compliance department to make sure I'm saying that accurately.
Great. Thank you. Now, continuing on with this theme about what do we do with the international questions. So you spoke earlier and you said that the U.S. has some of the strongest standards around toy safety in the world. So I presume other countries have standards as well. But there's a question here about those super cheap retailers that you can search and online and get them to ship directly to you, and people are wondering if that is too risky to order from. Is that something they need to be? I think this goes back to your advice about going to retailers that you know and trust.
Correct. Yeah, definitely our advice, again, would be going to a retailer you know and trust, and that's not only in the stores themselves, but online as well as that becomes more popular. Again, you want to make those choices. And even, again, look a little further. I always say, go ahead and contact maybe even the manufacturer of that product. Just like we tell consumers to ask more questions even when you're in the store. You can do the same thing and just check directly with them, making sure that they're meeting standards. But again, using a name you know and trust can be, again, your first line of defense there.
Great. Do the lead safety standards vary by state, or is it all the same across the country?
Yes, for us, the Consumer Product Safety Commission, as a federal agency, it's required across the state now, across the nation. So these are national, federal standards required. States can actually go kind of above and beyond the commission and have specifications on certain products. But for everything we've talked about today, all these ASTM F963 toy safety standards, they are a federal standard and required everywhere.
Great. I've got one here that I can actually answer. Someone's asking about where a parent can obtain one of those small parts testing cylinders, and I know that they are actually widely available. Walmart, Bye Bye Baby, Bed Bath & Beyond, and probably even on Amazon. You're just looking for a small object tester or a small parts tester. Cylinders, I think there's a number of companies that produce them and sell them across multiple stores.
Platforms, exactly.
Yeah, platforms, exactly.
I would say I think they're usually in the child-proofing aisle, so the same aisle that you would get your safety plugs for your outlets. They're usually in that same section of the store.
Perfect, and that's a great stocking stuffer for someone with a little kid.
That's perfect.
Okay. Another question around, you sort of alluded to this earlier, but someone was asking if they're checking out and they're looking at donating some old toys to shelters or to resale stores, what should they be doing before they donate those toys?
Yeah, you definitely want to check. We've worked actually with some of the, because there's a lot of big resale companies, and we have a reseller's guide actually at cpsc.gov, so you could check our reseller's guide and giving you some generic tips across the board on some products. But also I've noticed because of the Consumer Product Safety Improvement Act, again, the law that requires third-party testing, and sometimes, again, looking at a product, you can't always know maybe the year or the make of the model that it was that may have been on previous packaging. Some of these resellers, because we get contacted all the time from them, have been educated and they won't accept, even accept your donation. So it is important to check exactly what the requirements of that donation center could be. And again, we just don't want you to give a safety hazard to another, unsuspected family. So, best thing is, check for recalls, of course. Make sure you're not passing down any recalls products. And then, again, sometimes because the toy standards have been strengthened, over the years, over time, sometimes newer is better. on certain products. So there is going to be products you want to avoid.
Now, I know button batteries are a particular concern, the little coin-sized batteries.
Yes.
We know that they cause great problems, but
Yes.
is there other restrictions around battery-powered toys in terms of an age, or should parents, again, be just reading that packaging and seeing what the age recommendation is for a battery-operated toy?
Yeah, it's super important with the battery because they're going to have that, again, that extra step that a consumer is going to have to take. Again, sometimes a screwdriver or an additional two steps to get into that battery compartment. We don't want the kids to get access. But it's important to note there are products that are not toys that have button batteries, such as remote controls, which are usually out and available in your home. So keeping them up out of the reach, that they may not have that same toy safety requirement. So that's important to know. So I appreciate you bringing that up. Button or what we call coin cell batteries, if ingested, again, they can cause chemical burns inside. So really, really serious. So, but it's important. There are products that are not considered a toy that may also contain that type of a battery.
Great. So I've got a question here. Someone's saying, if I'm a home child care provider and I'm looking to do some decorating in my home for the holidays, are there things that I should be avoiding or things I should be thinking about if I'm decorating my home and I've got young kids around?
Yeah, well, I think one of the things we mentioned on the candle side, like I said, I'm really impressed with how good they look. The candles that are battery operated, they still give a flicker like a real candle, but you avoid that fire hazard altogether. You don't have to worry about the kids. So that's one great tip. And then again, with lights, and this goes across the board, not just for the kids, but and we have everything glowing and with the light sets, go ahead and unplug them, obviously, before you go to bed, that kind of thing. It's important, and making sure the kids know, not to access that outlet as well.
Okay, great. A question about the warning labels on products. Are they only in English, or are they available in other languages?
That's another good question. I don't know. I know the answer. I know just based on the label examples I gave today, they were all in English, but I'm not sure if they're actually required. That's another good offline question for me to check with my compliance department. I haven't heard that question before.
I have a question here. What role can injury prevention professionals play to assist the CPSC in promoting toy safety? What sort of things are useful?
Oh, I think it's great that, number one, you are usually the front line for us, for the commission, and I know from my grassroots work with our community outreach how important you are. So I want to thank everyone, the injury professionals on the line today. That direct face-to-face communication with friends, family, and then in your line of work with your clients as well, making sure they're aware, like I said, of some of these hidden dangers in particular is always important. But again, two basic tips here today with toy safety tips were small parts and being a choking hazard, and then again, riding toys. That's where we're seeing, unfortunately, the majority of the deaths this particular year, and we've seen that in years past. So I think if you can help spread that word and educate families, you're doing a great service for your community. And again, some of these deaths can actually hopefully be prevented.
You gave us a nice segue to one of the questions, which was for the children that were on the non-motorized scooters who were unfortunately killed in the incidents. Were they using safety gear at that time?
I don't think it was listed, and you can actually read little scenarios in our actual report, again, at cpsc.gov. All of our holiday and toy and information is in one little safety education center right now, so you can click the link to that actual report, which is a much bigger report, and they go into depth with little paragraphs about each scenario. Again, it wasn't so much caused by the product itself. It was the child gaining access to a place that caused a new danger. And I think we had one case where a child rode their riding toy into a pool or water and actually drowned. So, for instance, that was, it's in our toy report because it's categorized with the product they were on. But again, it was access. And then I believe on the motor vehicle kind of incidents, again, and just to say I'm not sure even if a safety gear could have necessarily prevented a death, again, we're trying to reduce injuries too. But we definitely want you to have those layers of protection, and that's why supervision is key when it comes to the riding toys. At the end of the day, you're giving your child mobility and access, especially these really younger little kids who we've seen in these types of incidents.
Great, thank you. We're going to bring one last thing as the slide up for the contact information, but I really want to thank you, Nikki. Lots of wonderful information, and thank you to the audience for those wonderful questions. We are unfortunately at the end of our time, so we're going to ask people to please complete a very quick evaluation at the end of the session, and otherwise please look for the recording of this, and please go ahead and sign up for the recall. Remember, if you see something out there that you're questioning, to go on to the CPSC site and let people know about it. They can go and investigate it and find out if in fact it is safe. But again, a big thank you to all of you, and happy and safe holidays.